Hi, didn't see you there. My name is Martin Stoykov, and today we're going to talk about affirmative action. First, I'm not going to try to defend all aspects of affirmative action. I admit it's a pretty problematic concept. Second, I'm not going to say that affirmative action is unnecessary or that it's racism. What I'm going to do is define affirmative action, describe how the courts have dealt with it, and try to explain why it has existed and continues to exist. Let's start with a brief definition by the Britannic Dictionary of affirmative action. Affirmative action in the US is the active effort to improve employment, education, and other opportunities for members of groups that have been subjected to historic injustice. Criteria for affirmative action include race, disability, gender identity, sexual orientation, ethnic origin, and age. One very important aspect in life is that everybody should have equal opportunities for success, even though not everybody is gonna be monumentally successful like Elon Musk. And exactly here lies the root of the problem. In order to increase access to education and job opportunities for members of group that has been historically discriminated against, affirmative action programs try to ensure that they get extra special access to jobs and schools, which to many people actually is not. What is the argument made by some of these conservative groups? Under the relevant statute here, which is Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, employers are not supposed to base hiring or promotion discussions on race, and so there is the sense that some of these programs may go a little too far. Say you have an internship that is only available to candidates from certain minority groups, or a leadership training program that is only open to certain candidates from certain groups. That could be illegal under the Civil Rights Act. There are some exceptions under the law, and they are important. One of the key exceptions is if a company has a program that is specifically in response to a pattern or history of discrimination at that company. So, if you're an investment bank and for decades you refuse to hire black employees to be investment anchors or financial analysts, why would businesses go the opposite direction of discrimination? That becomes more questionable, and I think lots of groups are now starting to focus in on those things, where the connection to something being fixed is a little more tenuous. Those corporate programs gained a lot of traction in the week of George Floyd's death back in 2020. You might ask, why would businesses be looking to go the other direction now? I think it's really a concern about potential legal liability. And I think it's less going to be the opposite direction than just trying to put your program on the firm's legal ground. Affirmative action ruling that was just handed down said that white race per se cannot be a factor in discussion. Individual candidates can talk about impact on their lives, say outcoming discrimination and how that affected them. So you might see employers start to shift the rationale for their diversity programs. In the beginning of this practice, affirmative action meant directing government agencies to make policies that would assist minorities to get jobs within their own ranks. However, it wasn't a problem until educational misunderstandings appeared, that it really made a splash at the Supreme Court. In 1973, for example, racial quotas in medical schools admissions at the University of California, Davis were addressed. Out of 100 spots for entering medical students, 16 were reserved for ethnic minorities. The pleading student Bucky believed that those with fewer qualifications were accepted into Davis Medical School, while he was not. He sued, saying quotas discriminated against him due to his race. The Supreme Court found in Bucky's favor, prohibiting racial quotas for lack of equal opportunity, but allowing affirmative action programs provided they served a compelling government purpose and were carefully defined. This is assuming they passed careful inspection. This case is an example of reverse discrimination, which is the major problem with quotas. Because establishing numerical targets may favor discriminate groups over more competent people, opponents of quotas often emphasize the importance of meritocracy, where individuals should be selected based on their qualifications and abilities rather than their demographic characteristics. In most of the cases it hears, the court has struck down affirmative action provisions because they fail one or another of their strict scrutiny tests. But the basic idea that universities can create programs to build and maintain a diverse student body has been upheld. An interesting fact about affirmative action is that students of color are under-respected at top universities and colleges. Only 5% of undergraduates at the nation's leading research universities are black, and only 14% of undergraduates at those universities are Latino. Nearly 48% are white. This does not mean that awarding extra points to people in racial minority groups was allowed. Quite the opposite. It was perceived as unconstitutional. Universities can now use race as a factor in admissions so that they can provide a diverse learning environment to their students. This is legal, but the Supreme Court carefully examines the university's policies. If it seems anything like a quota, it will be struck down. Although courts have determined the correcting past injustice of slavery, prejudice does not justify affirmative action. Many believe it does. Since coming as slaves, minority groups, particularly African Americans, have faced brutal treatment and legal disabilities. Even the Civil Rights Act of 1964 failed to provide equal opportunities for everybody. Personal history and politics greatly influence opinions on the need for affirmative actions today. But it is a double-edged sword and it should be used very carefully to prevent doing harm in the exact sphere it was trying to help. Oh wait, some of you might actually wonder why a video on affirmative action started with shoveling snow. And honestly, I wouldn't blame you. I was trying to implement a metaphor that when applying affirmative actions, you may overdo it to the point where it's now not an equality, but rather an unfair playing field. Bye bye.